We've come over to the Greensboro Arboretum today, and we filmed a separate video that you may have already seen. They're putting in a new Southern Living Plant Collection garden, and we were with Christina Larson for that video as well. She introduced the garden over here to the Greensboro Arboretum. And in this video, we're just gonna do some of our favorite plants here in this garden, because it's got a lot of mature specimen here, and so it's kind of nice to come someplace and see what a plant actually does in the ground. It's not being given, they're not over attentive to it. They're attentive enough to keep them in good shape, but not over attentive to the point, except for this space here, where you have a formal garden made out of our great native Ilex vomitoria nana, or dwarf yaupon hollies. So yaupon is native to the southeast United States, typically more really in Florida. You see it more than anywhere else, and along coastal parts of North Carolina, South Carolina. But it's plenty cold hardy enough to be here in Greensboro, and this is the dwarf version of it, which I've shown many times. But it makes every bit as nice a formal garden as a boxwood does. And as it's flushing in the spring, we're seeing that right now. It has this slight burgundy hue to it, which is super interesting. And as you can see, looking down, there's a platform back here. Looking down on this is actually a butterfly garden shaped as butterflies, which is really kind of cool. The perennials that are in the middle sections are just waking up, because we're filming this in middle April. So it's not really, they're not putting on a show yet. But if you came back here in June, you would see lots of butterflies in the middle of all of these, the butterfly structure made out of the dwarf yaupon holly. So we're gonna go through and do some of our favorites. Christina's gonna show off some of her favorites here in the garden. And then Steph, if you stick around to the end, or maybe more, maybe I can get her to do more than one, but certainly at the end, Steph has one of her favorites here at the Greensboro Arboretum. So let's bounce around.
Hi, it's Christina Larson out here at the Greensboro Arboretum. I'm with Greensboro Beautiful as the board chair, and I love to spend time out here at the Arboretum looking at my favorite plants, including this ginkgo behind me. I love the shape of the leaves, the color, especially in fall. This thing will turn a bright gold and then drop all its leaves seemingly in one day. So it's really dramatic to have this gold carpet all around the tree. But it's also got this irregular habit to the branches, which I think adds interest. So come check it out, the ginkgo at the Greensboro Arboretum.
So if you're following the channel, you know we've been tree forming a Chinese snowball viburnum at the house, but I kind of wanted to show you what these things, how big they actually get if you just let them go. And so this is along a road. You could probably hear it for sure in the microphone right here. So this is a barrier along what looks like a 4 or 5 lane road over there. But this is a Chinese snowball, or viburnum macrocephalum sterile. These are sterile inflorescences that become just gigantic in time. So ours this year are about like this, which is bigger than they were last year, but these have really gotten some size on them now. Nice thing about this one will be kind of semi-evergreen, just depending on where you are. The further north you go, the more leaves it loses in the winter. The further south you go, the more evergreen it is, and it will repeat bloom a little bit in the fall. What are you doing? You see I'm in a pullover, and you guys know that normally in February I'm already in shorts and short sleeve shirts, but the cool weather just won't let go this year. It's supposed to be 43 here or something tonight. That's total Griffin right there. I'm sitting here trying to talk about this this viburnum. He's got other plans. So we're gonna let's find something else. Oh, you silly boy.
So this is absolutely one of my favorite small trees. This is Flamethrower redbud, and you see where it gets its name. The red new leaf growth comes out in the spring after those beautiful, sort of pinkish purple blooms fade. And then it'll start to change. You'll see all sorts of colors, all the warm colors like red, orange, yellow, even kind of a cantaloupe color to it. I mean, it's really a stunner in the landscape. Pair it with anything dark green to kind of help set it off, and you'll get a lot of compliments.
The overlook area where you can overlook that formal garden with the dwarf yaupon hollies has this beautiful entryway, to this little platform that where you can look out, and it's got star jasmine growing on it. Star jasmine's another few weeks away from bloom. Well, no, about maybe a week or two away from blooming. It's budded up quite a bit. This is an evergreen vine, and we are on the edge of where this plant will do well. They've got to have some maturity on them to not get damaged during the winter time over here in Greensboro. Once you get it established and it's heavier wood in the future, it's fine. But anyway, that's star jasmine. But on the other side of it right here, this was Schizophragma hydrangioides, which was a hydrangea-like vine, okay? But it actually got moved to hydrangea, and so now it's hydrangioides. So it's the hydrangea-like hydrangea, which is kind of funny. It's about to flower now, and it gets interesting, kind of flat clusters of flowers on it. I like to, kind of has a blue-green foliage. This one will grow in sun or shade, but really part shade is where it tends to land the best, and really kind of rich organic soil. That's the kind of the key for this plant. It would really prefer to stay moist but not wet, and some people will struggle probably to find the right place for this plant, but once you do, it's quite beautiful. Leaves are beautiful, flowers are beautiful. It doesn't even really need to flower because it's such it's a nice vine. It does have holdfast, and so sometimes where the star jasmine on this other side is kind of wraps around everything as it goes. It's when you decide to get rid of it, you can get rid of it pretty easily, right? But this one is going to be locked on to that wooden post pretty tight in several places. So keep that in mind. You want to put this on a structure that you don't care whether it might damage it.
So this is another one of my favorites. This is a 9-bark. The specific cultivar is Amber Jubilee, but there are a lot of different varieties of 9-bark. You could find a dark purple, almost black variety, solid green, just about any color you're looking for in the landscape in a native plant. It blooms in the spring with white blooms, and then it starts coming out with these beautiful kind of orange tinted green leaves. And in the winter, when the leaves are gone, you'll still have this beautiful exfoliating bark. So pair it with a contrasting color such as a bright gold or chartreuse plant to kind of be even more eye-catching, and you'll absolutely love this 9-bark in your landscape.
Well, Jim figured that it might be a good idea for me to show a couple plants that I really liked in this garden. There's a whole lot to choose from, but I decided that I would pick this golden smoke tree. It's a great chartreuse color in the spring, and it holds that yellow color pretty well, as opposed to some things that in the heat would kind of fade some. This will hold up very well. And in the fall, it has a really great orange and apricot and reddish fall color. It's a beautiful, small ornamental tree. It could also be used as a hedge of sorts. There's varieties that supposedly get 6 to 8 feet, others that get 8 to 15 feet. So there's different sizes of the golden smoke tree. It's a great plant. Hardy zones 4 to 8, and it's just beautiful. Probably in zone 8, I might have it in a wee bit of afternoon shade, and perhaps put some protection over those roots with something to shade them. And this being a perennial bed, it's doing that quite well. So my first plant is the golden smoke tree. Such a beautiful plant. Oh, and I forgot that it does bloom in those little puffs of ethereal wispy blooms that it gets in the late spring. So it's a beautiful tree. I love it.
This is a hybrid spirea, Spirea X Van Hootii. This one is, again, it's an interspecies hybrid. Typically, you can see this one is about as big as 8 feet in height, something like that, but typically more in this 6 foot range, 6 to 8 feet in width, something like that. It has this beautiful weeping nature. Sometimes from a distance, it might be confused with bridal wreath spirea, but if you get up on it and you can see the individual clusters are a little bit different. It's actually 2 different species crossed together that aren't bridal wreath. Has slightly off scent to it, and it attracts a crazy number of pollinators. I mean, there's native bees on this, and there's all kinds of little flies and wasp and all kinds of things. It's just starting to warm up. I've still got this pullover on today, but it's gotten slightly warmer as we've been here, and this thing's just covered up in pollinators. And I don't know if the camera is actually going to pick that up, but a lot of them are flies. And then there's a native bumblebee up there on top taking advantage of it. But everything's coming from everywhere to take advantage of this plant. This is a extremely hardy plant for sure. And you know, for a week or two in the spring, it covers up like this, and it's just absolutely incredibly gorgeous. Again, pollinators going crazy for it. And then the foliage is actually quite a nice weeping habit in the garden as well. It'll eventually, you know, colonize a bit in the garden, but really easy plant. I should, you know, one that sometimes I miss some of these spring plants that bloom for a week and a half, and I go, oh man, why didn't I film that thing while it was open? If the bridal wreath, we got a bridal wreath up the street from us, is still blooming when we get back home, I'll show that off in comparison on the flowers. These are in the rose family. One interesting thing, spirea is from the Greek word that means wreath, and that's why you get bridal wreath spirea. And then, you know, it's obviously named wreath from this habit, you know, how the flowers are arranged on various spireas. Van Hoodii was an easy one for me to grow, an easy one for me to sell in the spring, and an easy one for people to have in their ornamental gardens.
So for something blue, another favorite is this deodar cedar called Feelin' Blue. It's a cascading, weeping, if you will, cedar. And you know, it's green, but it definitely has an undertone of blue. So it can really highlight well with other plants that are, you know, silver, green, gold, you know, the fire chief arborvitae over here, all kinds of different conifers and Japanese maples go really well with this plant. And with any weeping plant, I always tell people, if you want it to be taller, like this one is, stake it up. You know, while it's supple and you can move the branches, stake it up as high as you want and let it weep from there. Or just let it be completely prostrate. This hill obviously gives it a little bit of an idea of, hey, I'll go this way. Also, it's trying to get more sun, so it's going away from the shady back border back there. Cedar, deodar cedar, Feelin' Blue.
Before I talk about my next plant, I will point out this chartreuse foliage forsythia over here, which in my experience, the chartreuse foliage ones and the variegated ones don't bloom as well, but why would it have to? I mean, it does that the rest of the season. And one thing I'll add to it is here in the south, they tend to bleach a little bit in the full sun. So probably a little bit of late afternoon shade is kind of advisable in the deeper south if you're trying to do one of these chartreuse forsythias. But I'm here to talk about this Daphniphyllum, which just stopped me in my tracks a couple times now. I've seen this plant 2 or 3 times now, and every time I do, it's just absolutely beautiful. Daphniphyllum is the only genus in the plant family Daphniphyllaceae, and this is Macropodium. There's a variegated one, it's a different species over at the Ralston called Mountain Dove. It's one of the prettiest plants you'll ever see. It's been nearly impossible to grow. It has to be grafted, and they're very expensive. I want one, but when I've seen it as high as $500, so I have not bought that plant yet, because that's a scary plant to buy one for $500 and not have it live. But Macropodium is just a beautiful evergreen shrub that it blooms on last year's wood, and Steph can come in here and show this. I think there's this combination of, so you have the old foliage here, and out of that, here comes these flowers, and they're mostly spent at this point, but there's still some here. They're actually kind of pink like this, and then you'll see that right here where the leaves are being held on as well. And then the flowers have finished up. You can maybe see that pollen coming out right there. Okay. And then if we go back under here, you'll see last year where those flowers were along the stem, they formed these drupes. And then last year's growth happened. The flowers started to emerge, and then new growth from there. So it's like a constantly extending out further each year, but it blooms on that old wood. But just a pretty plant. This one probably can get 30 feet tall, something like that, but could be kept much smaller than that. If it was sheared, it's a little late to shear this one, and they've got plenty of room here to let it grow. But I just think it's one of the prettiest plants, especially with that new foliage coming out on it right now and having that kind of 2-tone coloration, really 3-tone colorations, because it's got that red in it as well.
So I'm obviously a fan of weeping plants, and this Cornuscusa dogwood, Lustgarten weeping dogwood, is no exception. I just love the weeping form. I think it's really cool to have different types of plants in your garden, some that are upright, some that are mounded, some are columnar, some are weeping. And you know, the cool thing about this plant is, just like what we've looked at before, you can take the branches while it's supple and stake them up to make it taller so it can weep from a higher spot if you have a bigger spot in your garden that you want to fill in. But Cornus cusa typically, so you know, we think of the native dogwood as being more of an understory tree. The cusa can take a little bit more sun. I wouldn't put it out in full sun, like a hot afternoon sun, but here in the wedding garden at the Arboretum, it's got just the right amount of sun and shade to make it absolutely perfect.
This is actually one of my all-time favorite trees. Every time I see this tree, it just stops me in my tracks. This is a variegated zelkova, Goshiki variegata, or Goshiki variegated. It has this pink new foliage on it when it's coming out in the spring, which we're just kind of past at this point. Has this really strong variegation and a slightly serrated leaf on the edge. That's where you would get that serrata in the name. Really beautiful variegation. This is an understory tree for sure. Needs a little bit of part shade. We saw this at another garden. It's been last year sometime, and it was way up into the canopy in that garden, probably more than 30 to between 30 and 40 feet in height, something like that. And I didn't recognize it. I walked past it a couple times and then ended up, you know, looking up there and go, oh my gosh, look what that thing is. But again, it's one of my absolute favorite plants. It's so showy. It always has, like other zelkovas, it'll have this really kind of perfect vase shape to it, even in this shade. This is quite a bit of shade this plant's in. I mean, the sun is on the other side of those trees over there. It's just, it gets some direct sun, but not very much. And it still has a really great shape, great form to it, and just tremendous, tremendous color. And again, if you catch this thing early as it's really starting to leaf out and put on that new growth, you'll notice that little bit of pink that's in the new leaves there. I will point out underneath it real quick, since we're standing here, here's an ikea that is budded up and about to flower. So this is our native ikea, and it's colonizing, which is what it does. It almost always does. This is a great plant for holding a bank in place, and you know, any place you want to control some soil erosion. It actually in the wild grows just wet conditions, but here in the garden in Greensboro, it's up on a little bit of a mound here. Lots of other root competition around it. It still looks great. Great fall color, great spring flower, great for pollinators. Native ikea.
Well, I was going to do one plant, but then, though there's so many that I would love to do, I couldn't help but want to do poet's laurel. We don't see it nearly enough, partly because it's a very long process to bring it from seed to market. It's over 5-7 years, so you don't see a whole lot of them for sale. I really want one though, so let's talk about it a bit. It is a beautiful plant. It has rhizomes that help it spread, but it basically starts at a crown area and then comes out in sort of a weeping fountain-like growth habit. Usually it's about, the fronds are about 4 feet long, 3 to 4 feet. And odd as it seems, these sprays of what looks like foliage are actually sprays of flattened stems. Pretty wild idea. They have really kind of inconspicuous flowers, but in the winter, you'll get some really beautiful orange-like berries, really quite striking in the winter when you don't have as much going on with your plants. One other thing that I just love, being that it's an asparagus family plant, the new growth that's coming up, that's heading upright before it starts to flush over, looks like asparagus. It's growing just like asparagus. It was pretty amazing. These are a little further along than the ones I saw a couple weeks ago, but you can still see that it's kind of asparagus-like. So, such an amazing plant. Oh, one other thing that's cool about it is, though it likes moist, well-drained soil, it can grow accustomed to dry shade. So for those of you watching and know we have a dry shade area, ooh, I just really want to put it there too. So this is poet's laurel or Danae racemosa, a great plant if you have a woodland garden. Thank you for watching as we've gone around the Greensboro Arboretum and highlighted some of the really beautiful plants that are available to take a look at here. And thanks to Christina. She was wonderful showing us around. Christina Larson, come and take a look yourselves if you're ever going through Greensboro. Y'all have a great day.